Want to get more on this with our guest and Helen as well. We've got Ben Wu, President of Storage for IDC with us. Ben, realistically, as I was saying, it's a lot of bluster, but what was intriguing about that last comment was that elegantly you can't really delete your information. Why is that?
We leave a lot of digital shadows actually everywhere. And the way the technology works, we create technology, we attempt to delete it, but we actually leave a lot of marks on the trail of our digital imprint all around the world. And that's part of the way the internet works. You know, everything travels through something else, and someone somewhere is watching you.
So there's no program like a virus software dragnet that you can actually put in your system, keyword search, and burn, baby, burn?
Unfortunately, not right now.
Well, you've said it all. Yeah, okay.
So how much data are we looking at? How much data are we actually creating and needing to store?
So over the next 10 years, EMC and IDC have put together a study called the Digital Universe. It's actually the 4th year we've done this. And for the first time, we've looked out not only 5 years, but 10 years out. So we've taken the 2020 view on life. And what we're seeing is that we're expecting to grow the amount of data by about 44 times. So put some technology perspectives in it, comes out to be about 35 zettabytes or 35 trillion terabytes.
Wow.
But knowing all of that,
Yep.
it sounds impressively elegant. But actually, what do we do with that information?
Well,
Why do we need to know that information
Well, that's a very
10
good
years
question.
hence?
Well, I mean, a lot of this is around the fact that we either A, we don't care about managing it, or two, because governments and regulators keep telling us to keep it. I mean, much of it's driven by a lot of the laws that are being written right now around the world. And not only in laws here in Australia, but as it relates to the rest of the world, whether it's the US, Europe, and so forth.
And so what about businesses? From a business perspective, how can they control all of this and actually look at getting a return on investment in the technology that they're installing to actually make sure that their data is safe and clean and looked after?
So here's the challenge. We are creating information about a rate of 50% more than we can actually store it. So there are new technologies out there that they need to take advantage of that will actually reduce and compress and deduplicate is the word we use in the industry, that information down. Now that's the technology part. But from the actual doing part, we're going to have a gap in terms of the number of discrete pieces of information we create and the number of people that's out there doing it. So in the next 10 years, we're going to increase the IT workforce globally by about 1.4 times. But the number of pieces of discrete information we're generating is 67 times. So the only way we're going to be able to do that is to create a much greater relevancy of what we're actually storing, so that we can go find it again. You know, Carson asked the question, what are we going to do with all this information? And a lot of it is to do with things like photos and so forth. You know, all of us are creating, generating, and coming up with all of these digital content. Finding it 10 years down the track is going to be the problem.
Why not make it user pays? Flush out, the wannabes. Get people serious about it. If you really want to post online, if you really want to clog up systems, you're going to pay for the privilege.
I think that's going to evolve. Right now, we just want people doing it as a technology industry.
Was there ever any doubt that they would?
Possibly, and there are certainly different geographies and different economies in which the reservations in things like broadband, the cost of broadband, the availability of devices is creating some of those challenges, yeah.
So what about cloud computing? Cloud computing is a model where for businesses they are actually paying for the privilege.
Right.
So how does that then tie back in? Is this the way of the future? Is this how we keep a handle on it?
I think so. I mean, certainly cloud computing is not a technology, it's not a product. You can't go down your computer store and say, I'd like a cloud with that, and I'd like some thunder and lightning to go with it, right? It's a process. It's a way of thinking, it's a way of doing computing, if you like, that is much more aligned with the way businesses work. Right now, most technology and information centers are a cost center, right? We need to start controlling and aligning our costs as it relates to revenues. So every business out there has been told to cut costs, cut costs, cut costs. The problem with that model is that if you cut costs, that's only going to be good if your revenues stay the same or it's coming back. If you're growing, then your costs are ultimately going to have to increase. And it's how you control and manage that cost which is important. This is what cloud computing will do for you.
Okay, so you're speaking at EMC's Inform this week. You're the guest speaker. So what are you telling businesses? How do they do that? How do they increase their revenue and cut their costs?
So EMC, along with their partners Cisco and VMware, have formed this coalition called the Virtual Computing Environment Coalition. That's one of a number of initiatives that are out there in which it provides you with a background and the infrastructure to actually move forward and enable this cloud computing to happen. So what we're advising clients and end users is start looking at this today. Start adopting to this. It's not a technology issue for the most part. It's a process and philosophy issue that you need to start to get on board with this journey.
And is there proven ROI with this technology? Are they going to get a return for their investment and increase their profits?
Sure. So a lot of this is going to be longer term, but none of this is a quick fix. So over time, yes, absolutely. And the net result is not only a better ROI on the actual capital being invested, but also better user experiences from the end users as well.
We must wrap, but it's been a pleasure. Ben Wu, President of Storage IDC. Helen, many thanks both of you.
Thank you, it's been an honor.
Cheers. That's all we've time for. Of course, continuing coverage, though, in just a moment's time. Do stick with us on the Business Channel.